But on Mondays, the best is Connor O'Gara. And hearing that song also makes me realize that I'm ready for the next season of Cobra Kai whenever they're ready to release it again. I'm pretty sure about that. Connor, are you a Cobra Kai guy? Did you watch that series? I don't know why you wouldn't.
I haven't gotten into that one. I'm not. I know, and I've heard good things. My mom even watched it. My mom loves that show, but I haven't quite got into that one. I don't watch a ton of shows, and usually I do. Like, I don't watch a ton of shows by myself either, so usually it's got to be approved by both, myself and my wife. So, that's one that's been on the list for a while, but I need to do better. If I start watching that show, then I think I can be considered the best midweek guest as well, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that show's also geared towards, I'm just going to project a little bit about where your mom's age lies in. It's at the same target audience that I'm in, and it hits her target audience pretty well, too. It's too bad you're not into it, though, so we'll just move on to other things. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking ahead at this SEC schedule for this weekend, and it's something. It's something. Outside of Arkansas, Alabama, and maybe Auburn, South Carolina, there's just not a lot that really grabs your attention. And that's quite a bit different from what we saw this past Saturday, Connor. I mean, it's just another ridiculous weekend in the SEC. The only thing that never changes is that Georgia just continues to roll over every single opponent that they play and still don't have a close game yet.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about Georgia completing an 8-0 SEC regular season and beating every single team in the SEC by at least 3 scores. I mean, this team it's a force. And we were going into the Tennessee game thinking like, oh, hey, maybe Tennessee's going to be able to do some things that other teams haven't. Now, nobody thought Tennessee was going to be able to win that football game, but at the same time, it's like, all right, well, I should say nobody outside of Lane Kiffin who picked Tennessee to win on College game day, but I digress. There was an idea that maybe Tennessee could stretch the field and they could take some chances. They could play with some tempo, and we'd see if these Georgia corners are really ready to compete at a championship level. And look, I get it. Tennessee scored 17 points. If you just look at the box score, you say, hey, that's the most points that Georgia's allowed all year. That's not a blueprint game, though, because Tennessee went 53 minutes in between touchdowns. So Georgia defense still very good, still was dealing with the flu in that game with, I think they had 8 of their 70 traveling players dealing with the flu, a bunch of guys on that defensive line, and it just doesn't matter. This team is a different force. Nobody is on its level right now, not even Alabama.
I read what you thought about Arkansas LSU, and the thing you take away is that the Hogs can win the ugly, low-scoring games too. You know, as you find a way to win a gritty game, any team that has a successful year is probably going to have to win a game just like that. And it came down to how many plays, like big plays, can your team make versus the other team. And on both sides of the ball, it just felt like the Hogs made more big plays. And there was none bigger, I think, than Monteric Brown's interception in the end zone. Of course, K.J. Jefferson getting away from the rush like he did and finding Dominique Johnson for the long touchdown was huge, too. I mean, those 2 plays for me defined the whole game.
You're exactly right. This is not a game that Arkansas wins last year. This is a game that last year Arkansas loses because of some bad call by an official, and Arkansas is on the wrong end of it. But, you know, what you have to do if you're going to be considered a good team at the Power 5 level is find different ways. And Arkansas, that was a perfect example of finding a different way to win. Treylon Burks had 4 catches for 16 yards. All right? Like, the running game, 3.5 yards a carry. Burks getting shadowed by Cordell Flott in much of this game. And I know Kendall Briles tries to move him around a lot. That was one of the things I said going into this, why I'm like, I think LSU wins this football game because I think they take away Treylon Burks with how well Flott has been playing now that he was back healthy. But how do you win that football game? You win that football game because K.J. Jefferson makes an All-American play. He keeps his eyes downfield. He shows that maturity, finds Dominique Johnson wide open there, and that's the difference right there. And to me, that's what Arkansas wasn't able to do last year, and it's showing that they're finding ways to win these close games. And they're not necessarily a team that is just kind of like searching for ways of how to win. And you're looking at a team right now at 7-3 that can still end up with a really solid 9-win season and ultimately, you know, feel good about this year 2 direction with Sam Pittman.
Connor, one of the teams in the SEC West that I still can't figure out, I still cannot wrap my head around Mississippi State.
Nobody can.
because it's such a roller coaster. I mean, what kind of team are they? Are they good? They bad? They're okay? I mean, it feels like 1 week they're great and 1 week they're not so much.
It's bizarre. Cole Kubelik has been calling them the weirdest team in college football for weeks, so I don't want to steal that, but it's true. And what we saw in this game, though, was kind of a microcosm of their season, right? They fall behind 28-3 and come back and score more points than any Mississippi State team has ever scored against Auburn. They scored 40 consecutive points in this football game on the road. The reality is it doesn't matter where they're playing, and it probably doesn't even really matter that much who they're playing against. It's just all about whether or not they can find that protection to block a three-man pass rush. And if the defense adjusts, then they're going to be in some trouble. But we've seen defenses that fail to adjust in-game, Kentucky being one of them and Auburn being the latest. And Will Rogers is becoming really, really good. I mean, that's really what a lot of this comes down to. He is just mastering the air raid. You watch him make some of these throws into the windows that he's getting against drop eight coverage. He could not make these throws last year. Now, it's helping that the offensive line is holding up and they're able to block these three-man pass rush. But, man, he is really turning into a star before our eyes. He and KJ Jefferson, Hendon Hooker, they're all going to be in that conversation for all SEC, probably that third-team all-SEC quarterback. And I'd probably give Rodgers the edge at this point because it just comes down to him making these throws and understanding his offense. The guy he is totally dialed in, and that is a scary team to play down the stretch.
Yeah, it will be. On the other side of the conference in the SEC East, and you're obviously located in Florida, are you worried that the state is going to burn down with a fire starting in Gainesville even after a win against Samford? I mean, when you beat an FCS team 70-52 and then celebrate like you just beat Bama, I can't give the fan base and a lot of people that in that state that cover the sport for a living that great of a feeling about where the future of the team is headed.
Well, let's be clear here. I mean, the state of Florida, if it hasn't burned down yet, I think we're good.
That's true.
You know, we're going to be fine. We're going to make it through. But, yeah, it's bad. And I was texting with Florida buddies during this game, and, guys, I can't imagine Alabama or Georgia allowing 52 points to an FCS team. I can't also then imagine celebrating in that way. Because, look, I get it, players. If you want to celebrate, that's totally fine. You want to feel good after a win. Stop a 3-game losing streak. That's all well and good. But if you're going to be celebrating like that, we're not going to consider you in that category of Alabama and Georgia. We're just not. You're going to be viewed in a much different lens. And that was a terrible defensive performance. You fire Todd Grantham, and you allow more points to an FCS team than any Power 5 team ever had. I mean, that's just a stunning reality. Like, that was also the worst half of football that Florida has had from a defensive standpoint against any team ever. 42 points in the first half. I mean, how do you show up that unprepared for the air raid offense? It just totally dominated them. It was bad, and this is just more evidence that Dan Mullen is going to be gone at season's end, and hopefully the state doesn't burn down because, man, if it does, I guess I'm gonna have to move up to Arkansas and live by y'all.
I can't wait. First of all, it's going to sink into the ocean before it burns down. I can't wait for Dan Mullen's press conference today because he's going to find some positive spin to put on that and, probably, point to the number of points they scored and everything. But I played in the last segment before you joined us here, Connor. I played their post-game celebration, and then I found the famous Club Dubs celebration with Chad Morris. It sounded exactly the same, man. It sounded identical. You don't want to have that comparison, but there it is.
It's sad. It really is. And if you're celebrating those victories like that, and that just kind of makes you question if you truly get it. If you truly get it, because let's think about the person who posted that on social media. Like, who thought, hey, you know what everybody needs to see right now is us celebrating this 70-52 win against a 4-5 FCS team. Like, if that thought process is happening, much like the situation that happened at Texas last week with that leaked audio, I just question kind of where exactly your head is at if you think that that's going to be received well. It was never going to be received well, and this is the SEC, and that's the type of stuff that just does not fly.
All right, last thing, Arkansas, Alabama this weekend. The last I saw this morning, it was Bama favored by 20.5. which I think is legit. I think Arkansas can cover that, but I want to see, hey, it's been 14 games in a row Arkansas has lost to Alabama. They've ended long streaks of losses too this year. LSU, Texas A&M, so why not Alabama? You know, I'm saying that with a straight look on my face here too, Connor. So, I mean, is there any chance that you see that Arkansas could pull off the upset?
Never say never. Never say never in the year 2021. And never say never when Alabama, in 4 of its 6 SEC games, has been in a one-score game in the fourth quarter. I remember that. And it hasn't necessarily mattered how good that team has been. I mean, I understand that they're able to roll against Ole Miss. They rolled against Mississippi State. Those wins look pretty good now. But at the same time, like, you know, one-score game against Tennessee, one-score game against LSU. This is not a world-beater Alabama team. It's just not. And I'm curious to see if they're going to be able to get the ground game going because, you know, 2 weeks ago against LSU, 6 yards rushing. That's it. All right? Like, Arkansas can hang with Alabama. Now, beating them, that's a different story entirely. We're still talking about a team that, up until that A&M game, hadn't lost to a non-top 15 team since 2010, the Steven Garcia game. So I don't necessarily think that's in the cards, but I think Arkansas is going to be able to hang around. I think they're figuring out who they are at the right time of the season, and they're finding other guys that can step up, and I think they're going to have some problems with KJ Jefferson, but yeah, I'd still probably take Alabama to win this game, just maybe not cover the spread.
The thing I see, too, is, you know, we haven't seen this against Arkansas really in the last – well, it didn't happen against LSU. Happened just a little bit against Mississippi State, but not as much as earlier, and it was those wide receivers running free past the secondary. It feels like the Arkansas secondary has improved a bit, but, I mean, you're facing – look, Alabama has struggled to run the ball this year. They haven't struggled to move the ball through the air. I mean, Bryce Young is a terrific quarterback. They have great receivers. They block well for Young. So, I mean, that is an Alabama strength against what had been up, I think, until recently, a weakness for Arkansas.
Yeah, the key matchup, it's all about Jameson Williams and Miles Slusher. That's it right there. That's your ball game. If Jameson Williams is going to get behind the secondary, which he's done very, very well, leading the SEC in receiving right now, it's going to be bad news bears. It's going to be some of those flashbacks like we saw even in the Auburn game as well for Arkansas. But if he plays like he did against LSU, and that interception was ridiculous. I mean, what a play he made in the secondary and a key juncture in that game. If he plays like he did then, that's going to be a different story. And if Alabama doesn't have that deep threat, that's when they start to play down their competition.
All right, Connor, appreciate your time, man. Thanks as always. We'll do it again next week. Thank you.
We're back and better than ever. A new web interface to start the basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your #1 spot for all basketball and football action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE50 to receive your bonus. That's BLEAV 50 to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, and baseball postseason, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.